Back then, I was sponsored by big Swiss Pharma. They were trying to find a new cure for cancer or dementia or heart disease. And I was young, I was an anthropologist and mad enough to go into the Amazon when there were terrorists who had taken over big swatches of it. And I found out that the reason I came back empty handed, because in the Amazon, there's no heart disease, no Alzheimer's, none, zero, no dementia, no cancer. There's a new human being born. They call it Homo luminous, not sapiens, not thinking man, but luminous. This new human is going to be able to take her health span and make it equal to her lifespan. We have a new species appearing on the earth that's more intelligent than we are.
Welcome to the Reality Revolution. Today I have a fantastic guest. Today I'm talking to Alberto Villoldo, a medical anthropologist and psychologist who has spent more than 4 decades studying the shamanic healing traditions of the Amazon and the Andes. The New York Times dubbed him the Indiana Jones of the spirit world. He sought out and trained with the Kero shamans of Peru long before Westerners were paying attention. He is the founder of the Four Winds Society and its Light Body School, widely regarded as the gold standard for training energy medicine practitioners. And he's written more than 25 books, including the classic Shaman, Healer, Sage, and the Wall Street Journal bestseller, One Spirit Medicine. He has an absolutely fantastic book on the brain that has just come out. We're going to talk about. There's so much we can talk about. It's so nice to finally have you on. Welcome to the Reality Revolution, Alberto.
Thank you, Brian. Great to be with you.
Yeah. So for people that are just accessing your work, isn't it crazy? Even when I put out 3,000 episodes, or you have 25 books, it's so interesting. All the people that are still coming to your stuff, brand new and fresh. So, please introduce us to your work and give us your origin story, if you may.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. So I was born in Cuba, Cuban refugee with the revolution, ended up in the United States. And I knew that people wrote books because I read books, but I didn't think I would ever write a book. And now I've ended up, with writing 25 or 26 or 27. I've lost count. And my work always kept taking me back to my source, which was Latin America. I found that Western psychology was very caught up in the ego and the self and your family story, which gets really tedious and boring after a while. So
Yeah.
What about the psychologies of the sacred, where your well-being depends on your connection to nature, to stewardship of the earth, on the caring of your tribe, and not only of surviving your alcoholic parents? So that's what took me back to the Amazon. And back then I was sponsored by big Swiss Pharma. They were trying to find the cure for cancer or dementia or heart disease. And I was young, I was an anthropologist and mad enough to go into the Amazon when there were terrorists who had taken over big swatches of it. And I found out that the reason I came back empty handed, because in the Amazon, there's no heart disease, no Alzheimer's, none, zero. Yeah, and no dementia, no cancer. And everybody explains that as being because of the change in diet, because they're using cell phones, because the minute they do, they begin to get sick like us and to die like us. But remember, in science, correlation is not causation. So if you ask the indigenous people, why are you getting sick like the white people? They say, because we become disconnected from the mother, from nature, from the jaguars, from your own wild side, not because of cell phones or diet. That's just a Western explanation. And today what I do is I spent, 4 decades learning the energy medicine, how we're energy beings, how we are interconnected with each other, and how we have a destiny here on the earth that is not only to look forward to retirement.
Absolutely fascinating. So is there a way that we can understand the differentiation and why we see these appearances of health problems in the modern world as related to those other worlds that you've looked at? What's happening that's causing things like dementia and those other elements?
Yeah, we talk, there's medicine now that's looking at root causes, treating systems, but not only treating symptoms. But the systems of the West don't include the spiritual, the connection with nature. We have pets. We don't have power animals like indigenous people do. So it's a worldview that is really exhausted itself, that is based on a parasitic relationship with the earth, predatory relationship that is unsustainable and is killing us. So you can take all the supplements you want. You can get a good night's sleep, exercise, work out, pump iron, but you're still going to die young because you're not in right relationship with the forces of nature. And that doesn't mean going out for a walk in the woods. It means also connecting to the invisible world of nature.
Right. What does that mean when we say we connect to the invisible world of nature? Can you talk about your experiences with that?
Well, the word nature doesn't exist in the Amazon because
Right.
nature means what's out there, and I'm not part of it. So the
Right.
word nature, they talk about your brothers and sisters, the plants, the plant people, the nature is seen as having two components: a visible component and an invisible component. So we think of nature as trees and animals and lumber, but the indigenous person thinks of nature as an invisible realm. Now, when I talk to physicists and they say, yeah, we call that dark energy and dark matter, 95% of reality is invisible. But it hasn't filtered down to our conception of what it is to create health and to create longevity. This is what's missing in today's longevity. Have you noticed how every doc today is a longevity doc?
Right.
Well, what's missing is the whole connection to the sacred, to the invisible, to your sense of destiny, to the journey that you have beyond this biological body.
So, for someone encountering your work for the first time, what is the luminous energy field and why does that matter to our everyday health?
Well, just to clarify, Brian, I don't know. I don't talk to people that are just talking to me for the first time.
Right, right. I understand that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you've got to come to this work as a result of being initiated by life. So that means a loss, a healing process, the hero's journey. And the fact is that 100 years ago, a physicist discovered that the photon, the electron, has a particle state and a field state. So and we also have a particle state. My particle state is called Alberto. Yours is called Brian. But we have a field state that is an energy field, a biological one generated by your nervous system, which is like electrical wires that have a nervous magnetic field around it. And we also have this part, the field state is going to continue after we return this biological body to the earth. Now, the fact that we cannot measure it yet accurately does not negate 5,000 years of science conducted in China and in Tibet and in India and in Native American traditions that speak about the luminous body, the aura, that we're luminous beings.
Hmm. I'm always taken with. I just got done doing a deep dive on the flower of life and reading about Carl Jung, these ancient meditational techniques that take that luminous body and sort of becomes dense over a long period of time by going within and running the energy within. Can you tell me what your discoveries have been about that?
Yeah, you're talking about a book called The Secret of the Golden Flower.
Yes,
And it's an amazing, amazing book
it
written
is.
by the Taoist
Mm.
that believed that you could upgrade the quality of your energy to become immortal,
Right,
basically. And if you didn't achieve immortality, at least you achieved longevity where your health span could equal your lifespan. You didn't want to live 200 years in a wheelchair, for example. So
right, right.
you could upgrade the quality of your luminous body, of your etheric body, and improve it. And that would improve the quality of your biological body. It would allow your DNA to express regions that have been password protected and,
Right.
and create extraordinary health. So this is ancient Taoist wisdom that really infused itself a little bit into Buddhism also, and inspired Carl Jung to talk and discover the whole nature of synchronicity and of the shadow and of the that we're energy beings. Jung understood that we are energy beings.
I think even with his experience, because he came to the flower of life before knowing about it, according to Jung. I think that just people that regular meditation practice interactions with nature sort of does create a layer of energy over it. And the thing that we don't have in the modern world, everybody wants everything immediately. But the real teaching behind that is that it's a lifetime practice that you're building this energy body, right?
Yeah, you're building, but this is our birthright also. So, imagine that we were all born with a musical talent, but some of us chose to develop it or not. And the rest of us were still playing, uh, a sixth grade song. So we have a birth
Right.
that we can develop this luminous body. In fact, the mythology of the shamans, which is similar to the Taoist one in that book on the flower of life,
Mm-hmm.
is that we incarnate to achieve energetic immortality. The Western religions say that we have an immortal soul, but that's not true. According to the shamans that I've worked with, they say we have
Right.
the possibility of an immortal soul,
Possibility.
but you have to work it. You have to awaken it. You have to connect it. You have to put it to work through service, through healing, through stewardship of the earth, and that you have 9 lifetimes, like the cats do, like the jaguars do. And maybe if you've been a good person, you get 10 or 12. Or if you've been bad, you only get 6 or 7. But if you don't awaken that luminous body in those 9 lifetimes, you're mulched. Your energy will continue, but you won't preserve your individuality, your unique, your essence
Right.
be turned into fertilizer. And this is at the source of that ancient Taoist book, which is how do you achieve immortality in this lifetime? Not necessarily only in this biological body. How do you take your consciousness with you beyond death?
It's a fascinating topic, and you're in the very place where I think that we can find real tremendous information. You have something called the illumination process where you clear imprints
Mhm.
in the energy field. So I want to talk about imprints. What is an imprint? And how can we go about clearing the imprints?
Yeah. The when I was a young man, I was at graduate school in anthropology, and I was funded by a foundation that calls me up and says, Alberto, we need a junior anthropologist to go to Haiti and complete a study that we're doing on voodoo. And I said to them, I know nothing about voodoo.
Right.
My expertise is the rainforest, is the basin of the Amazon. And they said, yeah, we know. We're looking at your grant proposal right now. And I said, okay, when do you need me in Port-au-Prince in Haiti? And I landed in Haiti. American team. One of the anthropologists had gotten sick, and I was a young kid. I was sent to do the dirty work, count how many grandparents and children in the house and how well did he eat. Did they have a toilet? But I got to meet the voodoo priest, and I asked him, "How do you hurt someone? How do you?" He said, "We don't hurt anybody." I said, "Well, how do you correct an imbalance? Because the French were the worst slave drivers in the New World. The average lifetime of the African slave in Haiti was 2 years. In America, it was 28 years." So I said, "Well, we correct this. If they've been abusing our people too much, we will call their spirit when they're asleep. We'll shake our rattle, summon their soul, and we'll see them in front of us, and we'll see that there's an imprint there for a dark mass, and we'll just tweak it. We'll activate it, and that dark mass will look for the weakest link to express itself. Could be the heart, could be the brain, could be the immune system. And so we don't have an imprint for heart disease. We have a dark qi, what the Chinese call stale qi, the body's trying to eliminate it the same way you try to eliminate a zit or you try to eliminate a thorn. It's trying to eliminate it, and it will do it through the weakest system in the body. And that person will die within 2 weeks of heart disease or a brain cancer. I go, wow, that's really nasty. And how do you heal someone? He said, we do it the same way. We summon their spirit, we track their energy body, we find that stale, dark, stuck energy, and then we bring it out through a chakra and release it. But we got to reinform that luminous body, upgrade the operating system. That will create health. I go, wow. And, in 4 days that I spent in the Dominican, in Haiti, I learned more about energy medicine than 10 years of being in the Amazon.
Wow. How fascinating is that? So when they were accessing, they could non-locally access the energy body, is what they're saying. They didn't have to be in the presence. They could non-locally access it from any place, correct?
Non-local. Non-local, so you could work remotely with somebody.
Right.
And you could heal somebody remotely, or you could kill them remotely. But remember that non-locality is a property of the field, of the quantum field. Non-locality to space and to time.
Right. Were you able to figure out what the process they were using to go into the state where they could connect with somebody's energy field? Did they have a protocol or a ritual or technique?
They entered into an altered state, a heightened state of awareness. And in Haiti, it was induced by plants, including coffee, one of the prime ones, but also a kind of meditation practice where they would quiet the mind. They would still the mind, and then they would step into perception, perceiving locally. Now, this is what was being done at a place called the Stanford Research Institute in California, many years later by Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff, where they were doing distant viewing of Soviet missile sites. And it was funded by the CIA and by the Secret Service, by the Defense Intelligence Agency. Not only were they tracking Soviet nuclear missile bases, they were able to go and disarm, to intervene, to heal them. And I was a graduate student at that time, and I became quite friendly with the head of SRI, with Russell Targ, because I dated his daughter.
Wow. I'm a huge fan of Russell Targ. In fact, I've mentioned him many times on my episode. We just did a deep dive on the Stargate project and all the stuff that they did.
Well, his daughter,
he's been everywhere, right?
Everywhere. Last time I saw him was at Esalen, and he tells me, Alberto, I'm in love. And I said, Russell, with a woman? Or is it human? Because he has these very thick glasses, His daughter.
Okay, so before we go any further, you just mentioned Esalen. When I was talking to Paul Selig about his experience at Esalen. Can you tell people who have never been there how interesting Esalen is as this location?
Yeah, Esalen Institute is a beautiful location in Big Sur. It was a property inherited by a man named Michael Murphy, where he had all the cutting edge humanistic thinkers. Stan Groff was there, psychedelic therapy for a while, and then many people in the human potential movement. And I've taught there on numerous occasions. But to go back to Russell Targ, they were actually intervening with the electronics of nuclear. Wow. And his daughter repeated the experiment, Elizabeth, and she came to the Andes, to the Amazon with me a number of times. Repeated the experiment. She was a Stanford MD, graduated from Stanford. The same protocols, but using them to heal HIV patients in studies that were published in medical journals. Exactly the same technology, the same thing that the Voodoo priest was doing, remotely stepping into the quantum field, breaking free from the constraints of local space-time, and being able to have an effect on a person, on their health, or on electronics remotely. So
Right.
we know the mechanics, we know how it works. And the only people that are still continuing this research is the military.
Right. I'm convinced there's got to be some private companies that are continuing this research. Even when I was just reading about Russell Targ running an experiment in the 80s where they would they would remote view into the future where somebody would hold a green or yellow card. It was something to do with silver futures, and they were actually able to predict like 9 or 10 times in a row the exact growth of the silver future just by remote viewing this little short window of time into the future, whether somebody was holding like a green card or some or two different objects, right? Something like that. Yeah.
I think it's happening very privately. I
Yeah.
think it's happening in the defense industry. And I directed a small neuroscience laboratory at San Francisco State University. And
Hmm.
unbeknownst to me, the first 3 years of our funding came from the Department of Defense.
Wow.
We were looking at remote healing, and then they hired us to train people that took bombs apart, terrorist bombs.
Right.
And when you take apart a bomb built by a terrorist, it's not like the movies where you cut the blue,
Right.
the blue circuit. You had to get into the mind of the terrorist so you could disarm it because they had anti-disturbance devices.
Right.
Then after a while, they wanted to see if they could intervene with the electronics of the explosive device. So the government is into it, and the private sector, in terms of the predicting the future, breaking out of the probability envelope, and seeing where the gold is. Unfortunately, it's not always for the best of the earth, but
No. But just like electricity, it can fry us or it can light up our lights. You know, that's always been the nature of consciousness.
nicely.
You said that imprints can be ancestral. Does it pass through previous lives or genetics? If the imprints can be, we are born with imprints. Is that right?
Yeah, the my endeavor, my work is to bridge ancient healing traditions with the modern world, and the you have to think of the energy field as an information field, not as fuel, not as light, but information that
Hmm.
organizes the physical body in the same way that a magnet will organize iron filings on a piece of glass. So if you can upgrade the information in the field, you can upgrade the health of the body. If you downgrade the information in the field, which is downgraded by toxins in the water, by microplastics, by the the news feeds that we get that make us fixated into this dopamine, adrenaline state, then you're going to be downgrading the information in the system, and then the biological body responds with illness. Remember, illness is the body's best attempt to heal itself.
Right.
And it's not, and if you treat the symptom, you try to kill the cancer, you're missing the opportunity to create health. You're making the cancer the enemy. So this is the different mindset that's involved here, is recognizing that we all come with genetic, could have been better genetically for all of us. We could have inherited a few better genes because we're part of a biological experiment.
Right.
Biology is experimenting with our genetics. It's also experimenting with our energy field. And we created, and the experiment that we're taking part in is an experiment in immortality. And let me
Right.
give you the science behind it, which is that there are only 3 species in the planet that don't have a death program encoded in their DNA. Only 3 species. Every other species in the planet, the minute that you stop, go past your childbearing years, you're eliminated. There's no menopause in nature. There's no There's no old age in nature. Nature eliminates the female as soon as she's not able to have babies,
True.
except for 3 species: whales, humans, and dolphins. And these are the 3 species that have the biggest brain to body weight ratio.
Yeah.
So nature is doing an experiment in longevity with these 3 species because we don't have a death program. We have menopause. A woman can live 40, 50, 60 years beyond her childbearing years. And the grandmothers were always the wisdom keepers. But
It's true.
that requires that you look at biology and humanity not as the final product of biology, but another experiment.
Right. We are a part of an experiment. There is no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So, how can I go about removing imprints if I become aware of them, or if how can I find them and remove them from my energy field?
Yeah, this is going back to your book, The Golden Flower, the Tree of Life. Yeah, precisely. So and this is what Carl Jung did, was to give us a language for describing this and explaining it. He called it the shadow. What goes into your shadow? What do you hold? What do you project? The mechanism of the shadow is projection. So what do you project onto the people you don't like? So I have friends of mine that absolutely despise Donald Trump, and I ask them, well, give me 3 good things that Trump has done. So he hasn't done anything good. And I have friends that despise Joe Biden. Well, give me 3 good things, because otherwise you're projecting your own unhealed parts onto your negative parts, but also your positive side. So you project
Yeah.
on movie stars and into the
Right.
people that you would like to be like.
I've always felt like politics was a projection of the shadow. It's just a big old projection on a mass scale of the shadow,
Yeah.
for all, right?
So you have to understand what you're not willing to own. And if you begin owning it, you're going to be purifying your energy field, but you've got to also work at the biological level so
How
that
do we do that?
if you cannot grow a new body, for example, by eating French fries. You got to eat well, you got to eat right, you got to love right, forgive well. And then if you work like we train our students to perceive and to track the energy field. So you can sit in front of somebody and say, oh, look, I can track this ball of dark energy, like usually the size of a tennis ball. And if it's beginning to affect the biology, you see that it'll be beginning to sink roots into an organ system. And what
Right.
it's trying to do is to work itself out of the body, is to heal itself. The luminous body is working to heal itself. But if it tries to do that through the physical body, it's going to create a healing crisis. And then we're going to try to fix the symptom instead of considering that as a window of opportunity to create amazing health.
Wow. It's so true, and it feels fundamentally true, and I've definitely seen that. I wanted to talk about your book in Grow a New Brain. You argue that aging can be slowed or reversed, and I've always had the idea that in the that if we can live long enough, we can live forever. The key is for us to live long enough to where we reach that point. We're going to learn the science. So talk about how we can actually reverse our aging.
Okay, we're going to get a little bit into the science here and into
Yeah, that's fine. We love that.
the ancient science as well. So we talked about how humanity is part of a biology experiment. Let me show you another biology experiment that is happening in the planet
Yeah.
now. It's happening in the Andes and it's happening in Tibet. So the experiment in the Andes was to make people shorter, bigger hearts. An Andean person living at 4,000 meters, 12,000 feet, their heart is twice as big as ours and
Mhm.
twice the amount of hemoglobin, oxygen transporters. The experiment in the Himalayas is tall people, same size heart, but twice the amount of mitochondria in every cell, the energy factories. The experiment is working in the Himalayas because the Sherpas can go all the way to the top of Everest without doing what the white people need to do, take a bunch of oxygen with them. In the
Right.
Andes, it's failed. In the Andes, you die young if you live above 12,000 feet. So that's the experiment is happening with humans, is that we don't have a death program in our DNA, but the ancient systems that were designed to protect youth are still active, so that we don't have the antioxidant and the repair systems that shut down at about the age of 30. They're still going, they're still active. So this is what ensured that you did not live forever, because if you did, then there would be no evolution. You would have the single king male wildebeest spreading his semen to all of the females, and evolution wouldn't happen. You wouldn't have any diversity.
Right.
So even though we have no death program, the repair system shut down at about the age of 30. Your glutathione production, your SOD production, all the antioxidant. But we know how to kickstart those. We know how to start those again today. And this is what the shamans in the Amazon discovered, was how do you reinstate, reestablish these, repair these youthing systems and keep you young. And that's absolutely, and the sacred plants in the Amazon, not the psychedelic ones, those were the teacher plants. The sacred plants were the plants that turned on the antioxidant systems, which are what we call the NRF2 activators. Things like broccoli seeds that switch on these repairs, switch on more than 2,000 genes that create health, and silence more than 1,500 genes that create breast cancer and dementia. And the other thing is that you need to reset the immune system of the brain, particularly, because the brain has its own immune system different from your body's immune system. And it's called the microglia, and it has two states, an evil state and an angelic state. If there's a lot of toxins in your brain that has gone through the blood-brain barrier, this immune system will try to eliminate these toxins. So it'll switch into a mode known as M1, microglia 1. And this is the demonic state. And it doesn't know how to reset itself into M2, which is the angelic state, where it eliminates the misfolded proteins, the tau proteins, the beta amyloid that we associate with Alzheimer's. So that's the number one organ. And the basis for my book, Grow a New Brain, was that in the Americas, there was no writing. All of the wisdom had to be kept in the brains of the elders. They had to protect the minds and the brains of the old people. That's why you have no dementia and no Alzheimer's. So the combination of plants and spiritual practices like the golden flower were the ones that prevented dementia and created longevity. And this is what's missing in our Western materialistic medical approach to longevity, is the whole spiritual dimension. Spiritual here's the strategies and the techniques for upgrading the quality of the information field.
I've always suspected that you see the tech guy that's spending $1 billion on living forever, and he's not spiritual, and you just know he's not going to be able to make it through that last phase. That I think is the critical thing, is a key part of it. So,
Yeah, Brian
good
Johnson
point.
definitely doesn't have the spiritual angle down.
Right. Uh, so you mentioned someone named Don Antonio, that this was a shaman that you met,
Mm,
um, and he took you on, and you were initiated by the Kero. Can you talk about that experience?
yeah. So when I landed in the Andes, I had spent already about 10 years in the Amazon. And at that time, Wade Davis, you know Wade Davis? You know of him? He was in the
Sounds
Amazon
familiar.
around that time also.
Hmm.
Um, so I was interested in the, the shamans that had a lineage, because the Amazon shamans are taught by the plants, but the high mountain shamans have schools. They have lineages that the church tried to exterminate. And the reason that I ended up in Peru is because I had read and discovered that it was the only country in the world where the Inquisition was still active. The Spanish Inquisition. They were a little bit more subtle. They weren't burning people, but they were trying to exterminate this experiments, people that practice the experiment of immortality.
Right.
Because the Catholic Church in particular, they have an amazing business model, which is that, you work really hard for us building cathedrals, and then we'll pay you in the afterlife. You'll get rewarded in the afterlife. And then until recently, they even had a system of credits that you could buy while you were still alive to cut down your time in the hells and the purgatories. But they eliminated that about 10 years ago. So I forget what these were called. They were called anyway.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What's the name? It's on the tip of my tongue. Yeah.
Me too. I'll think about it in a second. But you could buy these credits, purchase them now from the church, and then you could use them after you died. What an amazing business model.
How convenient is that? Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So they're called plenary indulgences.
That's right.
Plenary indulgences. So I was interested in these shamans that understood that we were luminous beings having a biological experience, and not biological beings that had the soul that could live after we died. No, you were already a luminous being that chose to reincarnate, and that you could upgrade your membership in this human race, that you could practice or take part consciously in this experiment in extreme longevity and immortality. And that's how I ended up with Antonio. I had a research grant, and I needed a translator. And he was an Indian, self-educated, that was also a professor. So I hired him. And I only discovered that he was one of the great shamans when we came to a village and where a missionary had died, a woman missionary, very generous, kind woman from jaundice, from hepatitis. And they kept running to him and they said, Don Hikaram, welcome. Can you help this woman to die? She's dying. And I said, you're the shaman we've been looking for? He said, yeah, I was looking for you too, he said to me. And it turned out that I was probably one of the few people available that could help communicate a certain message that they had for the world, the prophecy of the coming of a new human, of this immortal human, the undying one. Because these were shamans that had defeated death. So we did the death rites for this woman, and where he disengaged each one of her chakras, beginning with the heart, and then going to the third chakra, the throat, etc., and then pulled the luminous body out of the physical one. And I was so close to him. I was, a foot away from him, so I could perceive what was going on. And I had never seen that before. And I know I hadn't had anything to drink or smoke. And this is one of these synchronous events where he said to me that the mother, the Pachamama, brought me to him to be able to share this message with others. That I was nothing special, nothing particular. I was a messenger. I was not the message. And I discovered that he was a shaman that, and I had a brand new PhD at that time. And he kept saying to me, you're very educated, but you're not very smart. We got to uneducate you. We got to heal your ignorance, your stupidity. So that one time I was saying to him and a group of of high shamans, women and men shamans, telling him about the butterfly effect. You know, the butterfly that flapped its wings in Beijing and caused a tropical storm in the Caribbean. Chaos theory, right? And one of the women raises her hand and she says, "Well, can you please show us?" I said, "What do you mean show us? This is quantum physics. I can't show you." He said, "Yeah, if you can talk about it, it's because you can do it, right? Come on and flap your little doctor wings and heal somebody in India." And I said, "I can't do that." She said, "I can." They could operate in this remotely as well as locally within the quantum field that was not only not local to space, but also to time. And part of their mission was to anchor a future state where our children's children could be born into this planet.
So I'd love to get your impressions of a lot of people first are exposed to shamanism, you know, Carlos Castaneda back in the 60s and his adventures with Don Juan. He presented himself as a student at USC, writing sort of an official, you know, there's been lots of arguments and research done into Carlos Castaneda. What are your impressions of Carlos Castaneda's writings on shamanism?
Carlos was a door opener. He was a weird individual. I knew him. I didn't know him well, but
Oh,
I met him
wow.
on a few occasions. Weird individual. He come to do a lecture in a three-piece suit. He had these five women that looked like Nazis to me. Um, and but and he had way too many drugs. So and he was psychologically wounded. He was a very wounded human being that had not done his inner healing work, and at the
Right.
same time has had opened the doors for a different kind of study into shamanism. So again, he was the door opener, and a lot of exaggeration, a lot of literary liberties that he took. But my main concern now is how many people are coming to shamanism through ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca. Right. Is it
The,
a distortion? It's not the best place to come to it through?
the plant has really spread itself out throughout the world.
It
I know
has.
more ayahuasca ceremonies happening in New York than I know in the Amazon.
Right. Probably not a good sign
I know.
because I don't want people to do ayahuasca unless they're with a legit shaman, and they're probably not with a legit shaman in New York. People are doing it like they're drinking beers, or you know what I mean? So,
You're having a natural drink. I think it's helping people in spite of that. I would be very cautious, very careful. There's a protocol,
mhm.
there's ways of doing it where you prepare for it and then you integrate. You've got
Yeah.
to integrate otherwise you had dinner with the goddess and 2 days later you forgot what you talked about.
There's a concept I wanted to ask you about that's discussed with Toltec shamans, and I've seen in multiple bits of literature a commonality that maybe you've seen is the discussion of something called the assemblage point, a sort of point that's in the back, where shamans could even like whack you on the back or move this sort of energy point that's in the back that corresponds with other parts of the luminous body. And they could determine like if you have a problem or something's going on by the angle of that assemblage point as it goes into the body. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is
Yeah,
a good.
tell me everything you know. I'm super fascinated.
Okay. So the easy way to think of this assemblage point is the energetic configuration of your belief systems.
Okay.
So this is your belief systems are the filters through which you experience reality. But that also has an energetic configuration. It's described as a little torus, like a donut shape, where you process reality through that. Like if I don't believe that the world is round, if I think it's flat, all my reality is going to be processed, with my core belief that it's a flat world. Or if I don't believe that reality applies to the macro world that we're in, it's only in the minute world, then I'm going to be excluding a lot of interesting phenomena. So the this point, the assemblage point, is the point around which you assemble your reality. And the notion is that everything that you perceive and you call real is a projection. All perception is projection. It's a projection of an internal map of reality that you have, and it's self-validating. It's confirmation bias. It confirms what you already believe in.
Right.
And this is rooted in a shamanic teaching that we're dreaming our world into being, that reality is participatory, that the photon is going to be where you look for it. And the assemblage point is simply the understanding of a person's worldview. So, and this is what good therapists do. You go to a really good psychotherapist, they want to know what your worldview is, so they don't challenge it, but maybe they help you come up with a bigger map, a fuller map.
I've met people that have found ways to connect an energy cord from the assemblage point to the sort of back of the head where the Bindu chakra, as a way of changing the reality. They can tune into where it's aligned and create realignments in the assemblage point as a method of shifting their reality. Have you
Yeah,
ever heard of anything like that?
yeah, totally. I think we're all doing that all the time anyway.
Right.
That the woman that you marry or the person you end up engaged with is the person that's mirroring back to you the nature of the healing the growth you need to do. So I think it's important not to mystify these things too much, but to have them operational. To know that you are dreaming your experience of reality into being. And if you become a good enough dreamer, you can dream with your eyes open and it actually change the nature of physical reality. And the way you know you're doing that is because synchronicity becomes very frequent. You look at the clock and it's 4:44. You're talking about something and you see a billboard on the road and it's affirming. This is spirit saying, hey, come on, help me co-create. Let's create beauty and peace in the world. And
Yeah. I love it. So one place you talk deep about more for people that want to know where you go deep about dreaming is in the book Courageous Dreaming, correct?
it's dreaming, yeah.
Um, yeah, and you say, as you said, we are either dreaming our world into being or being dreamed by it. Um, so talk about that process. How can we become lucid in our waking dream?
And so one time I was having dinner with Brian Weiss. Remember Brian Weiss?
I
Many,
remember Brian, the physicist, right? Or no, he was the past life. He wrote the
yeah,
book on Many Lives, Many Masters. Yeah,
many lives, many masters.
yeah.
We were published by the same publishing company. And Carolyn Mace was having dinner with us too. And she said, Brian, you mean many wives, many masters, right? Is that what you meant? No, many lives, many masters. And somebody asked him, I said, Brian, what about when you meet that person that you know is your soulmate? What, what do you do when you meet that person? You know that you've known them forever. And he says, get up and run away as fast as you can. Because that's generally, he says, generally somebody that killed you, they
Right.
killed, and as they drove their sword into your gut and then they twisted it, they were making eye contact with you and you met them here again and you know you've always known each other, and of course you have. But that's that karmic relationship that so many of us have before we find love. So so I forget what we got into this conversation, but
Now
the,
we were talking about dreaming and lucid dreaming, but that no, I love that.
but
That's
how you
great.
look, I had my literary agent, um,
Hmm.
who is an attorney, a wonderful woman, wonderful. I've known her for many years. And if we're at a party and there's a single psychopath in the room, she'll fall in love with him. And and we all know people like that that have the worst taste in men and in women. And we were at a Hay
For
House
sure.
party one time, and we're talking, having a glass of wine, and she says to me, "He's here." And I go, "Who?" And yeah, I thought maybe Greg Braden had walked in or Deepak Chopra. She says, "My beloved." And I go, "Where is he? I want to meet him." She says, me too. Bring him to me, Alberto. And I look at the board. This is nice looking man appeared. She says, that's him. I says, but you haven't met him yet. I says, I know. Go to him and tell him you're my brother and you want to introduce him to, to your sister. Bring him to me. I said, I can't do that. She says, Alberto, I'm negotiating your next book contract. I go over to this guy and I said, hi, I'm Alberto Villoldo. They said, oh, I read one of your books. Come, let me introduce you to some people. He was a new author at Hay House. I introduced him to Greg Braden. I introduced him to a few of the other people and then bring him to my sister. This is my sister. And as soon as they meet each other, their eyes lock. And I no longer exist, right? So I amble away. And then the next morning she calls me and she says, why did you let me go home with him? He's a lunatic. And I go, me? I. So this
Yeah.
is attractors. We have these attractors for people that elicit our wounds, or after we've reclaimed some of our own shadow, they can elicit our potentials and our possibilities. And that's a very unconscious way of dreaming your world into being. The task of the shaman is to make it conscious.
Right. So true. So amazing. So many books, so many different ways of talking. Can you talk about what you might have learned from your experience with shamans about reading into the future, precognition, accessing the future self? Have you ever been advised or learned anything on those topics?
Well, I said earlier how what I do today is to train modern shamans. I have a school that's an international school. We train over 20,000 people as modern neuro shamans that combine brain science and the ancient wisdom teachings. And one of the healing practices that we teach is the illumination process, clearing the imprints from the field. And these are karmic imprints, many of them. Another one of the processes is future tracking. So how do you not treat a disease, but work with your client, your patient, to track along their future timeline, their destiny line, and find the future healed state that is permissible? Maybe not very probable, because if they have an illness, the probability is, but it's permissible, even if improbable. And if you can find it and anchor it to their timeline, that future healed state begins to reach like a giant hand and pull them through that window into that timeline and begin to organize reality around a healed state. So this is what the shamans have always done. If you were a medicine woman and you lived by the coast, you had to take the fishermen to where the fish were going to be tomorrow morning.
Right.
Or if you lived in the mountains, you had to take the hunters to where the buffalo were going to be the next day. If you took them there and there were fresh buffalo tracks, but no buffalo, you got fired.
Right.
You had the future track, make the timeline of the buffalo and the hunters converge. So
Right. So they're not only reading the future, but guiding it.
they're reading the future and they're arranging for this extraordinary synchronistic encounter between a person who is sick and their optimal health, where they may only have a 2% probability. The act of finding it increases it, takes it out of the fat part of the bell curve, and makes it a little bit more plausible.
I'd love to get your perspective of as we look out, as we come close to this end of this amazing interview, as we look out into the future, as you see the shifts and the changes in spirituality and in general, what are you seeing as we look out into the future in relation to with what you've been writing about all this time? What kind of changes can you see if you future track?
Yeah, we have as you mentioned, my last book is about grow a new brain. And we grow a new brain actually every 22 days. Brain cells don't divide. The neurons you were born with, you're going to die with. But every 22 days, through a process of protein synthesis, we exchange every component of the existing brain cells every 22 days. That's why your diet is so important. It's like somebody saying to you, you cannot have the new 2026 Mercedes. You got to keep the old 2000 Mercedes, but we're going to change every part, the engine, the wheels, the windshields,
Right.
22 days for the brain. So in order to really participate in the future today, we have to be able to manage incredible amounts of data, of information that our brain, which evolved while we were sitting next to a campfire or looking at the river or hearing a bird singing, is not suited to work effectively with data. It needs to come, we need to step up to a higher brain. And if we don't do that, and we know how to do that, we need the nutrients, you need the spiritual practices, the meditation, among others. If you don't do that, you're going to create psychosomatic disease. So we see so many people. 10 years ago, I knew a couple of people that were out of balance. Today, I know a couple of people that are not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a time of tremendous opportunity. The indigenous prophecies say there's a new human being born. They call it Homo Luminous, not sapiens, not thinking man, but luminous. And we have to take this quantum leap that this new human is going to be able to take her health span and make it equal to her lifespan. We're going to practice tremendous longevity. We're going to become Earth stewards and not Earth parasites. Extraordinary time of opportunity, especially now that we have a new species appearing on the Earth that's more intelligent than we are.
I love that. Absolutely. So, if people want to connect with you, they can find your website at The Four Winds, www.thefourwinds.com. And you have a school for neuroshamans that you mentioned. And everybody be sure to check out your new book, Grow New Brain, which we will have a link in the description. It has been a real honor to speak with you. Thank you so much for everything that you do and the service that you've provided and the lessons that you've given us, and just keep going out there like Indiana Jones and find out more, and we'll keep an eye on everything that you've written. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you
welcome
so
to the
much for
Reality
having
Revolution.
us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm Brian Scott. Over the last year, I have had the honor of hosting some amazing live in-person events, something I never thought that I would do. And I have grown and changed so much in these experiences. The opportunity to meet so many of you, to shake your hand, to hug you, to hear your stories, to watch the way that you grow, to see your changes, to get to know you. So many of you have followed my channel. It's been such an exciting experience. So when we were thinking about our next event, we decided we wanted to do something a little different. So many of you have found me through my teachings on money, on large sums of money, on the affirmations that I use. And so we brainstormed and came together with an amazing event. Over 3 days, we've planned out some of the most incredible meditative techniques, exercises, and teachings that I have ever done. 9 immersive meditations, all designed to shift you into the reality where large sums of money come to you easily and quickly. There is nothing I want more than for you to experience absolute prosperity. I want you to live a life where you are free to do what you want when you want. I want you to be able to choose when you wake up, when you go to sleep. I want you to lead a business that empowers you, that fulfills you. I want you to live a life where you choose where you live. You live in your dream home. You travel the world. I want all of this for you, and it's available to you. I believe when we come together at these events, magic happens. And so I want to have the opportunity to become a catalyst for you, to join me for 3 days so that we can manifest the most incredible life for you, one that makes you incredibly prosperous, where you tune into infinite streams of money. You walk through storms of money all around you. You experience it in every way, shape, and form. Large sums of money are coming to you. Join me in Austin on September 18th through the 20th at the Hyatt Regency. You can find the link in the description at www.brianscottlive.com/Austin-2026.